the class. Hey everybody, it is Carrie Roll Dawn and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Art with Influencers. I am here as always with the incredible Rachel Archelaus, founder of the Intuitive Art Academy. Hello, Rachel.
Hello.
And Heathere Evans, Heather, I'm going to read your bio, but I want to say before I do that, we met totally randomly through intuitive art, and already like the three of us are total soulmates. So I'm going to read Heather's bio so you can all be really impressed and learn what an influencer she is. So Heathere Evans is an ICF-certified coach and award-winning communications consultant. She provides training, custom talks, workshops, and coaching programs for individuals and organizations based on the latest principles and practices in psychology, neuro-leadership, and communication. Heather has won multiple communications industry Oscars and was named Washington PR Woman of the Year. A transformative health experience in 2013. After a transformative health experience in 2013, her lifelong philosophy of continuous growth and personal development expanded to include a revolutionary approach to coaching and leadership development that leaves clients more empowered, successful, and inspired in their lives and work at home. So Heather, hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm so happy to be here with both of you beautiful souls.
Well, we are happy to be here with you too. So this is your first time meeting Rachel. You guys met just a second ago. But as I alluded to, you and I met because you were invited to attend an intuitive art party. And so you're not new to this intuitive art thing, but you and I instantly connected. And when I was reading your bio, I was like, ooh, maybe why? And so before we even dive into, or maybe this will bridge into how you are influencing people and the world, I am so curious about that one word in your bio. That word was neuro-leadership. What is that?
It's an awesome question because it's one of my favorite conversations to have. So the work I do, very simply, is in working with teams or individuals to recognize and support them in when are they in their weakest self and how to step into their strongest self in any situation. So a lot of the work I'm doing is around personal leadership. How do we stand in empowerment in a different way, no matter what's occurring around us? I can't think of a better time, honestly, to be having that kind of conversation with so much as we're recording this, just acknowledging where we are in 2020 in the month of June with so much happening with COVID and with racial tensions. And so the work that I do is around how do we become more aware. There's emotional intelligence as a piece, self-awareness is a big component about where we are and how are we responding and reacting in ways that serve us or in ways that don't serve us, so that we can start to make more informed choices. We can become more conscious. So a lot of the work I'm doing is in conscious leadership. It's how we lead in our lives and in our organizations and our families, in our communities, in ways where we stand in our strength. So neuro-leadership is a component of that. If we're going to understand what's really occurring for us, a big part of it is looking at what is happening in my own body, in my own biophysiology. And how do I become more aware of when I'm in survival brain and how to shift into a stronger part of the brain, which is in the neocortex, where we have our creative thinking and we can see broader possibilities than the survival brain, which is excellent and functions really well. But if we allow that to run us and run our decisions and run our biochemistry, then we show up in the world in a really different way.
I can see Carrie's eyes like bugging out because this is so up her alley. And this is the approach we take in our coaching program too. So it's great to know that there's science behind it. And yeah, I can tell. All right, Carrie.
I was actually going to say, I know Rachel has something to say. So, okay, so I do want to actually talk about your sphere of influence. So this is amazing. I love that this is what you do. I love it. I just had an experience in my own life where I recognized as a leader of an organization, I needed to stop and slow down and not act because I was paying attention to my body physiology and I was fully aware that I was like in survival and defensiveness and pissed offedness and like a lot of things that I knew weren't going to like serve my organization. I also didn't know it had a name, but I love that. I love that so much, right? And so I have two questions. So one is, what are techniques that you use in that? And two, you talk about you work with organizations and individuals. I'm just wondering, like, who are these people? Is it corporations? Is it athletic teams? Is it who and what is it? So two questions, pick whichever one you want to answer first.
Okay, so I'll start the first one, the last one you asked, just because it's present in my mind. So my clients on the corporate side, so my business is kind of in two areas, individuals and then corporate work. So I'm hired to do keynote speeches at conferences, workshops for employee populations. I just did, right now, since we're doing so much virtual, I was hired by a pharmaceuticals company in, so a group of scientists, basically, a team of 50, and they wanted me to give some training on leadership. So I also have worked for many years with the Better Business Bureau, and they have me come in and work with their teams of CEOs, and we will have leadership conversations. So, you know, my work, I ran a public relations and marketing firm for many years before I started this particular business. I rebranded it and shifted it more into this work, which is related in a sense. It's all about how we communicate in the inner conversation or the outer conversation. So a lot of my clients I already had on the corporate side. So I work with large associations. I've worked with the banking community. I've worked with, for right now, there's a lot in tech and telecom is how I started. So a lot of companies in that sphere. But right now, mostly health organizations. So the profile shifts a little bit, but that's in general gives you a sense of kind of the corporate work. And oil companies. Like I could go on and on about the profile. So it's not really about a particular industry as much now because I've been doing this for 20 years. So I have a lot of different industries I've worked in. But I'm typically working with progressive organizations, ones who really understand that, like Emerson said, that the institution is the lengthened shadow of one man/woman, right? One human being. So if that's the case, how I stand in my sense of how I show up as a leader, no matter my title, that really matters. So that's my corporate work. On the one-on-one coaching work that I do, a lot of it really comes from my own journey. Some of it has been executives who, want to make a shift and are interested in really having a coach to help them assess what's happening and what they really want to do as far as living a purpose-driven life. But a lot of the work that I also do is in the area of topics, specific kinds of topics. So some of my clients right now are looking at navigating divorce in a way that's more conscious, getting through a disease diagnosis in a way that is the highest part, the strongest part of yourself, getting through just really looking. I have a client who just hired me. We're going to do a 6-month program because she's just looking at relationships in her life and seeing that across most of them, outside of her beautiful marriage and her relationship with her kids, her other relationships with women are really not where she wants them to be. So it's a broad range, but for me, it all boils down to the same thing. It's knowing how to shift from the weakest to the strongest part of yourself in any situation. So that was your first question. Now help me remember, what was your second one?
Well, I'm going to pause and see if, Rachel, you have any follow-ups before I get to the second question.
I don't think so. I mean, it's really beautiful. I could see and feel the legacy that you're creating by working in this way with these companies. So I'm just kind of feeling into it, and it's incredibly expansive, and you're changing so much just by doing this work with these people.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I love. And this will lead to, because the second question was about techniques, right? So what you just told me, because you were like, I've worked with this and I work with that. And I'm like, what's the common thread, right? What's the common denominator? And you said they're progressive organizations. And you talked in the beginning, right, about wanting to lead in a very conscious way. And then you talked about your one-on-one clients recognizing they have right? You're leading these people to their highest connection with themselves through the door that they come through. Might be divorce, it might be personal leadership, it might be health crisis, but there's something that opens the door where they recognize, I need help leading being a self-leader in the highest and most conscious way possible. So the first question I had asked was just about techniques. I was just curious. Obviously we're all coaches. We all know coaching. But is when you're talking about neuro-leadership and activating certain parts of the brain, that just got me thinking, we use intuitive art, which is a powerful technique that we use to sort of bypass the mind. But what are you using? Meditation? What sort of techniques are you using to help people with that?
So there are certainly tools, practices, principles. Some is mindfulness related. So there are little pattern interrupts that we'll discover together depending on what the team is experiencing or the individual is experiencing, depending which group I'm working with. But ultimately, the bulk of what I'm doing, while there are certainly techniques and tools that I'm teaching, and a lot of that will begin with, let's look at the science. Here's what you need to know about your brain. Let's really look at that. And so there'll be some education component about how the brain works and what it offers to us when we become aware of creating a gap, a space that Viktor Frankl talked about in his powerful book, Man's Search for Meaning. The space between the stimulus, the event that's happening, and my response to it. So that gap is what we start to create, a little bit more spaciousness there so that we can start to make choices from a more conscious, aware place as opposed to reactivity. So I guess, really what I end up doing is there's an education piece. I usually come into it from the science side. I love the biology, the neuroscience piece of it fascinates me. So I'm often sharing a piece of that and then having a conversation about what is it to become more self-aware? What are the skills of emotional intelligence that allow us to get more of that spaciousness and start to create a more expanded rather than a more contracted way of being? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Totally. I see Rachel's got something.
Yeah, well, it just sounds like you're helping people get into the present moment, right? So then they are aware of their choices. They're not just reacting, and they have that gap where they can actually assess the situation. Yeah, great.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's just like, yes, you're so right. It's about presence, right? Let me just become clear. Let me observe what's really happening. One of the first skills that I teach is often discovering the observer self and becoming more connected with that part in our consciousness, because we're multidimensional in consciousness. So that part of our consciousness that allows us to observe is one of the ways that we step into our strength immediately. There's a big shift in power and in empowerment when we do that.
So Rachel and I are looking at each other like, who's gonna acknowledge what just happened? So do you want to acknowledge what just happened, Rachel?
Go for it.
You just said a buzzword, right? You said something that Rachel has been talking about for years and years and years. And I love that we're talking about the gap, and that we're talking about how our brains work, and that we're talking about, like you said, something bigger, something multi-dimensional. And you've talked about consciousness, and like we're sort of dancing around the idea that you just nailed, right? Which is this multi-dimensionalness. And one of the things that we talk about in the way that we approach intuitive art and the way that we approach coaching, right, is this idea of multi-dimensional results, right? When you tap in to, yes, your strengths, but also the part of you that's bigger than you, we call it your higher self, you get multi-dimensional results. And that is what, so I just love it. I was telling Heather before this call, like there's always a moment in every interview where there's the shift, right? And you said that word multidimensional as like, there it is. So, so that's what, right? That's what intuitive art does, is help us tap into that multidimensionalness. And I know you've experienced intuitive art before, so we're going to do some intuitive art for you today. But do you want to share your impressions of intuitive art, or yeah, anything, how you've used it since your first class?
Oh my goodness. So I was immediately in love, because yeah, it gets you out of the known, everything I think I know here, and into your more expanded awareness that may not always be conscious, but is certainly there and available. And so immediately I thought, this is the coolest tool ever for anyone, professional or personal, to really be able to see how much deep intelligence is available to all of us. That we are far more intelligent on every level than we ever thought possible. And so to me, that's a very empowering awareness. So I was like, oh, the whole world needs to know about this. This is fantastic. So my first impression was, it was fun. It allowed for that creative intelligence that I think animates our bodies, to really inform me in a new way. So I'd asked a question, and I got this whole interesting, more deep, detailed way of looking at a problem. So I just think it's masterful and important, and it should be in every company, and everyone should know how to do this. It's one of the most powerful ways I have experienced in really getting to know and become aware of that greater intelligence that we are.
Oh, I'm muted. What a glowing endorsement. What do you got, Rachel?
I was just going to say, that's a wonderful. Thank you so much for connecting with it so powerfully, and for saying that. I mean, obviously we believe that as well, but it's really nice that it pairs so well with the work that you do. And, looking behind you, we already talked about your painting before we started recording, but, obviously you appreciate color and art as well. So I think it's a perfect fit.
I agree.
Well, and Rachel, this is something, I don't even know if I've told you that I've been doing this, but on the call that, in the class that Heather was a part of, one of the ways that I introduced intuitive art was actually to talk about how color is a personal language to each of us, which if you guys have taken our free intuitive art class, you know that, and you have your color meanings. But one of the questions that I asked everybody in Heather's class, I think I said, like, what color is Thursday? and everybody knew. They knew what color Thursday was. And everybody's was different, and it evoked this feeling of Thursday. I just think that's so powerful, and that was something that Heather really connected with. And I don't know why I mentioned it now, because it doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to do next, but there it is. So Heather, we are here today.
I just have to say, though, it is powerful. It is a great example of what we're saying. Who knew that we all had our own idea of what that was? What is that? Getting more curious about, like, why do I associate this color with that day? What is that about? That's very powerful. I love that you brought that up. Great example.
Thank you. Right? It is about that. So when you were talking about the gap, the way that I have a friend who, she's actually a sales coach, but she talks, don't mind my husband walking right behind me. There's Jim's butt for anyone who needed to see that.
This is the way the world is now. We're just all, right? This is life. We're not going to pretend it's not. We're in the middle of our lives.
Yes, it's happening. I lost my train. Can someone bring me back?
Great, Billy, take it.
I'm trying. I lost it too.
Dang it. Well, we're here to do a drawing for you. And you get to ask us whatever question that you want. Generally, in the talking about the work we do, or generally like a question has come up. So as we've been talking, do you have a question in mind that you feel like, oh, it was a stretchy Grohe, that was it. Sidebar, that gap, right? That sort of, it's not just empty space there. Sometimes there's tension. It has, and exploring what Thursday feels like, going deeper into, that's weird. I have this association of Thursday and orange, and what's that about, right? That's delving into the gap. And I have a friend who's a sales coach who calls that the stretchy Grohe, right? That like, that's where we stretch and grow. But it also, that gap, I don't know, I keep making this, it's not just like a fixed space, right? That gap, as we look at it, it has like this pulsating energy. That's all I was going to say.
I'm glad you found it, or it found you again.
Okay, question for intuitive art. Has something come up as we've been talking?
You know, I think what's just present for me, again, like this is part of my personal challenge to myself, is to step even more greatly into vulnerability and emotional honesty. So I'm just going to lay it out there. Where I am personally, I'm a single woman. I completed an 18-year marriage 4 years ago. And I'm really ready to find my king. I really feel for anyone listening, like the archetype of the queen. Like I really feel in that place in my life right now. And I started dating in January, and then like the world has been really interesting. And we've been, sheltering in place, and, dating has just kind of stopped. And I'm really curious, what is truly for me to know about calling in the one, like really the timing of the king's arrival, let's say, because I just feel like I have my whole court assembled. I'm here. I'm just waiting. I'm dancing in my garden. I'm like, hello, where are you, sweetheart? So that is the space I'm in. I would love guidance on how to make that into a powerful question. But that's how I'm feeling right now. Yeah.
I love that. And I think it can be an easy question. Like, how can I most easily allow my king to show up? Yeah?
I'm in. That sounds good to me.
Excellent. Well, Heather, since you have already done intuitive art, you're welcome to draw with us, or just sit back and relax and allow Carrie and I to draw for you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm writing the question. And by the way, Heather, I wrote the question that you asked initially, which is, what is Heather to know about the timing of calling in her king? Which is because you said, what am I to know about this? That's always an okay thing to draw on. And inevitably another drawing will come up, right? So Rachel's pretty adept at honing in on the specific question, which is, how can she most easily allow this guy to show up, right? um, so I just wanted to let you know that there was a question already in what you asked. Oftentimes there's a first drawing, and then there's okay, I need more clarity. And then there's a second question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to draw on how can she most easily allow her king to show up. So it'll be just a sec while you know how this works. It goes pretty quickly.
Yes, and I'm not drawing today. I'm just going to sit back and be peaceful.
You just receive.
Yes, thank you.
I've been writing. I usually let Rachel go first because she's a faster decoder than me. Oh, do you want to go ahead first, Rachel?
Sure. Well, I only have like 20 more years of experience than you, so it's understandable. Well, I have to say, I think this is a first for the show. I only got one color, and it was very fast. So how can you most easily allow your king to show up? This is my grounding color, and it feels like almost aggressive, like it's a very masculine line, and it feels very strong and confident. And so what this is saying to me is, if there is something in your life that you do like full out, like if you trail run 20 miles on the weekend, or go to boxing class, or if you have a 2-hour meditation practice, or like something you do kind of hardcore, this is saying do more of that. Like lose yourself in an activity, like hit the ground hard, and do something where you get lost in it, find your flow. And I'm feeling it as a movement, because it's such a movement kind of line. So yeah, and I don't know whether that will just allow you to part any resistance that you have in you about this, or if that's where you're going to meet this man. I'm not sure, but it's probably one of those two.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So do you mind my asking, are you a runner, or do you do anything kind of hardcore that way?
I'm a big yoga and meditation person. I like hiking, so I've started doing more of that. And I met someone hiking last fall, and kind of like dated for a couple months, but it wasn't quite the right fit. And then I went out on a date on a hike, a couple, I don't know, before all the madness. But I haven't, and I've been wanting to check out some trails down here. So, that's it. I'm not a runner. I'm not a big biker. I'm not. So interesting, Rachel. It's like, but I hear what you're saying. It's like, whatever you're doing, go all in. In the past in my life, I've been a very aggressive exerciser, but it's not the space that I'm in now, although I'm opening up to some of these other things where it's riding my beach cruiser, or getting out. I really got from what you shared, getting out into it somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. And enough to find that you lose yourself in the activity. Carrie can probably talk about this more, because she is a runner and she experiences that feeling. I'm a hiker too. Yeah. So whatever it is, it's go all out so that you find your flow in it. Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Well, and the reason I asked was because of the red that showed up in my drawing. So Rachel's words plus what this particular color means personally to me, I was like, ooh, maybe there's something there. So the bigger message I'm hearing from about what Rachel told you and what I'm about to tell you is like, go hard. Go hard in what you're doing. So whether that's hard yoga or hard hiking, and that going hard is actually, so this pink color in my drawing, this is all nurturing and kindness and softness and self-love, but it's totally encircling this like pretty aggressive red going up. And okay, so red is my hardest color to describe to other people because it is passion and fervor. It is intense. It can be restless. It can be anxious. But when red is harnessed appropriately, when red is inspired action, this is the best way that I can describe it, because I'm a runner, is running really hard and really fast when you're in great shape. So it might be experiencing like when you were a child and you had that moment of ecstasy running across a field or something, but that's what it feels like to be in incredible shape and running hard, like just using all of your energy powerfully and easily, right? It's easy to run hard when you're in shape. So I know that's a lot of words for red, but red has that power that like, if there's not, red is intense. And if there's not action, it turns into anxiety. It turns in. And that action is often physical action out in the world. So that's why I was asking, are you a runner? Are you a hiker? And then so there's the self-love is actually in going hard, in bold, brave, inspired action. And then what is also there is new, fresh, calm, knowing truth. That's your green, right? That's your new dude. And smile, satisfaction, ease, and joy. So it's the same message that Rachel gave you, right? The grounding, the nurturing, the self-love is coming from doing whatever you do. I want to say like aggressively, but passionately, intensely. Right. And the joy and the new, that calm, knowing truth of like, that's him. That's my king. It comes from that. So having heard all that, is something percolating?
It's hitting me like in this space that of how I've been feeling. It feels very validating. Everything you've said feels like what I've been, and it really is literally, this is a Monday. It was just this weekend where I had this experience of like, how, it was like a just go for it feeling. Just go for it. Go for it meant, this weekend, I actually had my kids. So it wasn't like a solo weekend. But it was like they had their friends and they were doing their thing. And I started just like, pick up the phone, just go do it. Just go do it. Go, go, go. Like that was the feeling that I had. Invite a friend over, do this, play your music loud, dance in the house. Like I just had this sense of like, go, just go. And that's what I'm getting from the red and from that can be like the masculine energy, the lines of this. That Rachel, was talking about, but in a very grounded way. Like I'm getting, and honestly, part of me felt like it was earthy. Like I did gardening this weekend. I potted some plants and I got into the dirt and I was just like in it. So it feels very resonant with how, like energetically, how I'm feeling.
Okay, I just love it because we were supposed to do this on Friday, right? We were supposed to have this interview on Friday, and like the universe kind of just said, no, Monday. Yeah. Monday is when it's going to happen. And here it is. And you used that space on Friday to connect with yourself, to connect with what you wanted. Over the weekend, you got that surge of like, just go for it, just do it. And both of our drawings are saying that, right? In the doing of it is going to ground you in what you help people do, right? Ground you in your truth, ground you in your strength, because to call in your king, you've got to be the queen.
That's right. Beautiful.
I love that.
Well, thank you both.
Oh, you're welcome so much. And I'm so happy that we got to have this conversation and we got to feature you on this channel. So I want to, everybody who's watching probably has already been aware, no matter where this is, Heather's links and info are super nearby. As you can see, she's amazing. She does incredible work in the world. And yeah, I think I just want to say, if you need help with the stretchy Grohe, or if you have an organization that needs help with neuro-leadership, Heather's your gal, so look her up. Parting words from either of you?
I'm just so glad that this was validating for you. I feel like that's a lot of what intuitive art is for people who are already really connected to themselves. It's just another layer of, yes, you got it, keep going. So I want to acknowledge that, and also what you're doing in the world. I think it's absolutely amazing, and everyone definitely go check out Heather.
Well, I want to say that this needs to be in more organizations. This is so powerful to really, if you know, for many people who haven't really discovered that there is an inner knowing, this is such an incredible, immediately gratifying, in a sense, an immediate personal experience of your own inner knowing. And everyone needs this. So I want to see, I'm already holding the vision that every company, every team, it can be done in families, it can be right anywhere at any time. It's so amazing. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so glad I found you guys. And it's been really nice to have this conversation today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. Heather, we are going to talk, because that is a vision that Rachel and I have, is to bring this to more companies and organizations. So thank you for validating that. It feels amazing. And yeah, I hope that everybody watching got validation today, got some sort of spark of something. And if you want to take intuitive art further, if you want to take our free class, head on over to intuitiveart.com and you can get all the info you need right there. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.